Hey everyone, it's Gary here from Echidna Sewing, and today we're going to be taking a look at the Brother M370 and the M380D sewing and embroidery machines. So it's a bit unusual to be talking about two machines in the same video, but I'm going to point the differences out right now. They are essentially the same machines. They're a combination sewing and embroidery machine. The only difference is that the M380D is a Disney model, and on Brother machines the D always denotes that it's a Disney model. The M370 is not a Disney model, and really the only difference is this machine has 65 Disney designs built in. Otherwise, they're identical. So for the purpose of this presentation, demonstration, I'm going to be using the M370, and as I said, it's exactly the same machine. So if you're looking at the M380D, it just has the extra Disney designs, which you can see by going to our website. You can have a look at all the designs that come built into the machines. So let's dig into it. So before I start getting into the features of the machine, I'm going to share with you a bit of information that I find really fascinating as a mechanic and a technician in this industry. And a lot of people ask the question about, is that machine made of metal or is it a plastic machine? Well, fact is all machines have plastic covers these days, but it's what is underneath that really matters. So let me show you. I'm going to take this hard cover off, and incidentally, both machines come with this hard cover, so that's a nice little inclusion. That really does protect the machine when you store it away. I'm going to take this off and expose something here that is quite interesting, and this is not the budget model. We've taken the covers off one of the machines to show you what's actually hidden behind the plastic covers that do cover the machine. And as you can see, this is just beautiful because this is a techie thing for me, I guess, but it's a full alloy metal chassis on this machine. So this is all alloy here, metal hook mechanism, really high quality electronics. Brother is renowned for producing great quality products, and particularly in their electronics, very, very reliable. And of course, being a computerized sewing and embroidery machine, you will of course have electronics on the machine. But I just thought it's interesting to know what is actually behind the covers, and these machines have an amazing pedigree going back many, many years, and just been such a reliable product, and through the various models that they've had. But the core of the machine is still the same. And the old saying, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Well, I've got to tell you, these things are still just amazing technology, reliable, easy to use. But there's the basis of it. It's all this metal alloy frame, metal base here. They're a very stable machine when you're sewing on them, and that is because of this metal componentry, and they don't bounce around the table. So you always get this feeling of really solidness. A little bit heavier than you might expect, because these days so many sewing machines are so light and bounce around the table. These don't. They're just solid and built very, very well. So that's the inside of the machine. So I'm going to move that. We'll have a good look at the sewing functions first. So let's get into it. Okay, so before we get into the sewing functions, there's one thing I should do really, and that's just tell you what comes with the machine in the box. So we've obviously already opened this one up, but I'll give you a quick run through. And first, of course, you will see that it does come with a great operation manual. And this is a very, very well written, clear and precise manual that covers everything. And yeah, it's just a great source of information, as you'd expect. And in this day and age, so many products go in all sorts of industries, get shipped now without any manuals, and you have to go to the website and download them, and sometimes print them if you prefer to read it off a printed book, but this is included. So that's fantastic. There's also these clever little pattern sheets, which we'll touch on when we're showing you the various sewing functions, but that's included as well. A little other bit of paraphernalia, how to use the Brother Design database software, which we'll get into. That's for your embroidery. And just important notices that, of course, you should read when you get any appliance. A quick reference guide. I love quick reference guides because, let's face it, when you open up a new machine, the very first thing you want to do is just get in and use it. So if you're that impatient, this is good. It'll help you get started really quickly. So have a good read of that as well. This is lovely. So this is the embroidery design guide. So if you're buying this as primarily because you want to do some embroidery, then all the different built-in designs and patterns and color charts and everything are in there. It's an exceptionally nice quality book, and that has all that information that you need. There is also a checklist of all the accessories that come standard with the machine. I'm going to go through those in just a moment, but it's always handy to keep this because it just allows you to see, hey, if you've misplaced something, you know what should have been in the box to start with. So that's also handy. And of course, I do have the little brochure that I've printed out here of the machine. So you can download and print or just have a look at this brochure on our website if you like. It's an excellent brochure, 4 pages with the full list of all the features on the back as well and all the inclusions. So a nicely presented brochure there. Obviously the machine comes with an embroidery hoop. This is a 100 by 100 embroidery area, and of course with an embroidery hoop it means it must have an embroidery device, and this also comes in the box. So these machines, both these models are sewing and embroidery combination machines, and that means that they do come with the embroidery attachment. And we will be attaching that a little later on to show you embroidery, but it's not an optional extra. It comes in the box, so it is fully equipped for you to get into embroidery right from the get-go. So that will just pop back there. So that is included. There is, of course, a foot control that comes standard with the machine. I don't have this plugged in at the moment because I'm going to be using the start-stop button, but you can use it either with the foot control or with the start-stop button. It also comes with a raft of nice little accessories, some pre-wound bobbins, plastic pre-wound bobbins, a whole raft of different feet, and I'll just quickly run through these. Hopefully camera guy can catch this. So these are the presser feet that come standard. Obviously the standard zigzag foot is already on the machine when you get the machine out the box. It does come with what we call an applique, or some people call it an embroidery foot, but we know it as the end foot or the applique foot. A zipper foot, an over-edging or overlocking foot, a blind hemming foot, a button sewing foot, so you can sew buttons on with these machines, surprisingly easy and much quicker than doing it by hand, and a buttonhole foot. That all comes standard in the box. There's also a little cover that comes off here to expose the free arm on the machine, so it is a free arm machine. You can do your tubular work like cuffs and collars and that sort of thing. And in here there is also another little storage accessory area there and another little bag of goodies. So let's have a look at that. We'll just pop that back on the machine. So you've got spare needles, a screwdriver for taking the presser foot off, a lovely little pair of embroidery scissors. As I said, a pack of spare needles there, a twin needle, your thread caps that hold the spools onto the top there, and a little seam ripper or quick unpick, a thread net, little cleaning brush, a handy little disc screwdriver, and this is for getting the needle plate screws out, so that's very, very handy. And of course there's also a little eyelet punch there, and that makes up the standard accessories that come with it. Oh, and there is also a spool of bobbin thread, Brother bobbin thread for your embroidery processes. But it really does come quite well equipped, so that's a lot of accessories included with the machine. And of course, Brother are renowned for having a huge range of different presser feet and options that are available, so there's loads more aftermarket stuff that you can get, and all very well priced. That's another big advantage with the Brother spare parts. They're very well priced, not too expensive, and so many of them that you can get your hands on. So that's what comes in the box. Now we will look at threading this amazing machine. Okay, so I'm going to start right from scratch here, show you how to thread these machines, how easy it is, because the automatic needle threading on these guys is incredible. You're going to love it. But first, let's switch the machine on. Obviously there's a standard power cord that goes into the machine on the side here. But I'm going to switch the machine on. It will come up with a screensaver to start with, and all you'll need to do is, as soon as you see that screensaver appear, is just touch the screen, and then it will go into sewing mode, because when you take the machine out of the box for the first time, it is going to be set up for sewing, not embroidery. So it will go straight into sewing mode. Now, you can use your finger on the screen, that's quite okay, or if you prefer to, you can use just a standard little stylus. I'm going to use one of these little styluses, which are available everywhere, very inexpensive. Main reason for that is I don't get my fingers in the way, so the screen will be quite visible to the camera, which is kind of handy. The first thing we have to do though is look at how we thread the machine. And I'm going to start by winding a bobbin, which is very, very simple, and then we will thread the needle. I'm going to be using a thread called Resant, and this is just a beautiful quality thread. I've got videos on threads on my website. You can check that out if you like. But a little tip, always choose good quality thread. Thread, if you use thread that's not so good, it will cause you problems, and it will lint up and fluff up in your machine. But more importantly, it'll just give you a bad result and just create frustration. So spend a little bit extra on thread. I like Resant. It's a great thread and readily available in most sewing stores. So I'm going to pop this on the machine, and the thread goes up onto this little spindle here, and you'll notice that there's a little cap that sits on there, and that cap is designed to keep the thread in place. First up, we're going to wind a bobbin, so I'm just going to get the threads in position there at the moment. Pop that on there like that, and I'm just going to pop that little cap over the spool, so that will stop it from coming off. We're going to wind the bobbin, and camera guy will be able to catch this, I'm sure. We've got guides, very clear guides up on here on how to thread the bobbin. You've got two lines. There's a dotted line and a solid line. The dotted line is the path for bobbin threading. And in order to do that, I need to get a bobbin. So you do get some spare bobbins in the machine. The bobbins are very standard. They're an A-style bobbin and literally the most common bobbin on the market. So you'll never have any problems getting bobbins for these machines. So first thing we need to do is we can pop the bobbin up on the spindle here, and you'll notice that moves in and out. Obviously to the left is disengaged, and you'll notice when I move it to the right, the light down here turns orange, and that means it basically puts it into bobbin winding mode. Don't want to put it there just yet, but I am going to take the thread and do my best to keep my hands out the way and clip it into the little guide. So number 1, number 2 is under this little section here, and number 3 is up and around under this little tiny tension assembly here. There's a very clear guide right here that says exactly what to do. And then the easiest thing to do there is now bring the thread across. I'm just going to cut a nice clean end on that and run it around the bobbin a few times. Again, there's a guide there, and I'm probably in the way there. I might do that again for you. I'll just make it a little bit longer just to show you. I've got a bit more thread on it now, so run it around there a few times. And right here, there's two little sort of clamps on the bobbin winder, and it allows you to put the thread in and then just pull it and it will cut it off. And that means it's going to start winding the bobbin perfectly with no excess thread getting caught or possibly causing you any headaches. So once we've got that hooked up, we just need to pull this across. It is now in bobbin winding mode, and all I need to do now is push the start button. And it's now winding the bobbin. You can actually speed up the bobbin winding by using this handy little speed controller here, and I'm going to explain that a little bit later. I generally don't wind bobbins at full speed. That just puts a bit more stress on the thread and can stretch the thread a little bit. But it will stop when it gets towards the end of the bobbin, or if you don't want a full bobbin, you just might maybe want a little bit of thread because you don't want to, you only got a little bit of sewing to do. You can stop that at any point and remove the bobbin. In fact, that's enough bobbin thread for me, but had I left it go, it would have stopped before it overfilled the bobbin. To disengage, just simply push that across to the left, and you can use the little cutter up here if you like to cut the thread. And there's my bobbin all wound. Now, let's load the bobbin and then we'll do the needle. First thing we're going to do is access the bobbin. It's a drop-in bobbin on these machines, and that means it's almost jam-proof, particularly the Brother system, which is called the quick set bobbin system. I love it. It's the same bobbin system they use on their big expensive machines and right down to these models as well. So very reliable, been around forever, and just so easy to use. First thing I'm going to do is raise the presser foot. The presser foot lever is just back here. And you'll notice when I raise that, the light goes red. That means the machine can't sew. If you tried to push the start button, nothing will happen. So that's a nice little safety feature there. The bobbin sits in under this black plate. So I'm just going to bring my hand around from the back here and just clip this little guy up and move that plate. I've already got a bobbin in this machine, and I'm going to take that out. Again, I'm going to try and keep my fingers out the way. So we just lift that up and pull the bobbin out like that. There is a little indicator right here on the plate showing you how to put the bobbin in and the angle or the direction that bobbin should be spinning. And essentially the bobbin will spin anti-clockwise. And if you follow the guide here, it's very, very simple. So all I need to do is hold my bobbin thread, pop it in the way it says there, and slide it around under the little, or into the little slot there, and pull the bobbin thread around, and then cut it off, and the bobbin is now threaded. And what's great about this is you do not need to draw the bobbin thread up. So anyone who's sewn in the old days, and not so old days, when you threaded your machine, you always had to draw the bobbin thread up through to the top of the needle plate, and then put both the bobbin thread and the needle thread back through the back of the foot. Otherwise you're potentially going to jam up your machine. You don't need to do that on this machine, because and you won't jam it. As long as you thread that bobbin correctly, which is really hard not to do, it's going to sew beautifully. We then take the little grey plate and pop that back into position and lock it down, and that is the bobbin threaded. So let's look at the needle. Okay, I'll just finish winding the bobbin, so my thread is still sitting here, but it is a different threading path for the needle. So all I need to do is just take the thread out of the bobbin winding path, and now we're going to follow the solid line from 1 to 2 and all the way down to number 8 in the threading process. So as long as you can count numbers, you'll be able to follow the threading. So I've got my thread coming into number 1, around back number 2, down under number 3. Now I do have my presser foot in the up position, and your presser foot always should be in the up position when you're threading your sewing machine, regardless of what machine you have. Old, new, whatever brand, it doesn't matter. Always have the presser foot in the up position. If you don't, the tensions will be closed and you will not be able to get the thread into the tension correctly, and you could jam up your machine. The other little tip I will just point out here, and it's important at this stage because it's part of threading. Most modern machines have electronics, and they have an automatic needle stop, which means the needle, when it's stopped in its correct position, is correct for threading. There's another part on the machine called the take-up lever, which just sits down in here. And the take-up lever is super, super important for stitching. And if that is not in the right position when you start sewing, or even when you're threading the machine, you'll probably jam your machine up. Now, on a machine like this, we have an automatic needle up-down function. And if I push that a couple of times, it will actually cycle the machine and have the needle in the correct up position, which means it's almost impossible to thread it incorrectly. A lot of people, particularly if you're coming from an older machine, you'll tend to want to turn the hand wheel to get your needle into the right position. If you do that, you've just got to be super careful that you've got the take-up lever at the top as well. Because, believe it or not, I can have the needle in the up position, but the take-up lever is still in the down position, like I have right there, right now. Yeah, it's still down. And if I tried to thread that now, I probably would miss the take-up lever and possibly jam up my machine. And again, that applies to any machine. They're all the same. They all have that same type of lever system. So tip, just hit that button, and now the needle is stopped into the correct top position. So I've come down to number 3. We're coming up. There's number 4. I slide across and back down to number 5. Number 6 is just on the needle bar. Just give the thread a bit of a hold up here. Pull that into the little clamp, and you'll see there's a tiny little clamp, and the thread's got to be in that position there. Number 7 is over here, and all I do is take the thread up to number 7, and number 8 is on the side of the machine just here, and if I just run that down there, I can cut the thread off. The machine is now ready for me to thread the needle, and this is where the magic happens. I do like to put my presser foot down, and all I've got to do in one quick movement is just push this lever down, and my needle is threaded. Now, if you blink, you miss it. It's that good. It's so simple to use. And at that point, just grab the thread and pull it through the needle, and there it is, all threaded. Remember, I don't need to draw the bobbin thread, so I don't need to hold the thread here and turn the wheel and get the bobbin thread up. I'll lift that presser foot, and I'll just pop that thread back behind there, and I am now ready to sew. Okay, so I've threaded the machine, the bobbin's threaded, we're ready to sew. So now it's time to have a general look at the screen and the buttons and the features that are on this machine before we in fact hit the go button. The first and most striking thing about the M370 is the lovely color screen that it has here, a touch color screen. This is in the general sewing menu, if you like to call it that. And from here I can access 135, no, it's not 135. I shall check my brochure because I think I got that wrong. It has 181 built-in sewing stitches, which is fantastic. 10 one-step buttonholes, 4 built-in lettering fonts, and a whole lot of editing features that are just super fun. So let's have a look at how this works. You'll notice on the right side, the left side of the screen, we have a picture of the presser foot and the current stitch that is selected. The great thing about this too, it's very clear, but it gives you all the information you need. So for example, it's telling me I should have my J foot on right now, and I've currently got a straight stitch selected in the left-hand needle position. I can tell that by just looking at that there. So let's go into the basic menu, and you'll see we've got our basic sewing menus and decorative stitches and buttonholes and more decorative stitches, different types of stitches, even some scallops and satin stitching and cross stitching and stretch stitches and lettering, and you can even make your own stitches on this, so it has basically infinite stitch options on it, which is kind of cool. Let's go into our standard menu right now, and we've got 3 different types of straight stitches, straight stitch with a auto back tack, and I'll show you that in a moment. But to move from screen to screen, we just hit the arrows down here, and you can see there's a whole raft. In fact, there's 5 different screens there of basic built-in stitches, including some dedicated quilting stitches. So while this is not an enormous machine, if you're a patch worker or you do like to meddle with a bit of quilting, you can certainly quilt on this machine without any problems at all. So I'm going to go back to, let's just go back to our standard straight position, and I'm going to choose stitch number 3, which is center stitch or center needle position doing a straight stitch. Now you'll notice here we've got some black boxes behind the width, length and the shift buttons. Now whenever on a Brother machine, a computerized machine, whenever you see a black box behind a setting, that means that's the standard factory default setting. So it's kind of always that starting point. If you've adjusted something on your machine and you're not sure what you've done, just readjust it till you get that black box setting. And if you're not sure at all, turn the machine off, turn it back on, and it will reset everything for you. Okay, so straight stitch, center position, stitch number 3. I'm just going to pop a piece of white fabric under here, lower my presser foot. You'll notice here also, before I start stitching, the other dials and buttons on this machine. We've got our tension adjustment here. Generally speaking, 4 for normal sewing is where it's going to be. We've got our reversing button, we've got our start stop button here, we've got our needle up down position button. Trimmers, now this machine also cuts the thread for you. Once you've had a machine that trims thread, you'll never ever go back, I can assure you. We have a speed slide control, and the beauty of that speed slide control is it will allow me to set any speed I want. Even if I'm using the foot control, I can actually set a maximum top speed at whatever speed that is, up to 850 stitches per minute, so it's quite quick. So we'll leave that there. Moving along, we've got our programming functions, or our screen functions. I'll get more into those when we get into the embroidery functionality. But right now, I'm set to go, and all I've got to do is hit the start button, and it will start stitching for me. Now that's set at a very low inching speed, so you can see I've slid that all the way to the left, and that means the machine will not go any faster than it's currently going. If you've got a young person, or you are a young person, you're a bit unsure about how to sew and you don't want the machine to get away from you, the speed regulator is great, so you can manage that speed at whatever speed is comfortable for you, right up to a maximum speed, which I'm going to slow it down again. If I want to go in reverse, I just hit the reverse button here. Now it will back tack, and it stops. And let's just say I finished my seam and I want to take the fabric out. I could just lift the presser foot, pull it out, cut the thread the traditional way, or just touch the little scissor button here and watch the magic. Cuts the thread for you. I can take that out now, and my thread has trimmed for me. No need to pick up scissors, and no loose thread tails lying around everywhere. Now, another magic part here is if I come back to start up the top, is I can turn on this little auto back tack and auto trimming function. Now when I do that, when I start sewing now, it's going to automatically tie off the start of my seam and tie off the end of my seam and trim the thread for me. So watch this little bit of magic here. We just hit the start button, 3 stitches forward, 3 stitches back. That's the back tacking done. And when we get to the end of the seam, assuming I'm happy with that, we'll just hit the reverse button, and now it will back tack, stop, lift the needle, cut the thread, and I have a perfectly neat seam, perfect tie in, tie off at the end, and that seam will not come undone. So I love that feature, that automatic back tacking. So very, very simple. Now if you wanted to move to a zigzag stitch, it's really simple. We just simply slide across, choose the zigzag stitch that we want, and put the foot down, and we can start sewing. Now it has the automatic back tacking still switched on, so even on zigzag you can do automatic back tacking. And when we get to the end of the seam, or I could stop halfway if I wish and then continue on. But when I get to the end, just hit the reverse button and now it will back tack in those zigzag holes, so it looks perfectly neat, perfectly tidy, and you've got a perfect zigzag seam there. I can also adjust the width and length, so if I wanted a wider zigzag, I just choose the adjustment option there. Now this is really good. On a machine of this value, it's quite extraordinary. I can see the stitch that I'm using there, and if I now want to make that zigzag wider, it's currently 3.5 millimeters. If we watch the screen right here, it actually changes on the screen. I can go right out to a full 7 millimeter zigzag width. If I wanted the stitch to be longer, you'll see it will also alter here. So visually, it's very easy to see what you're about to be stitching. And if we put that down, and in fact, I'll move across a bit. We've just made it a much wider zigzag. I'm going to click OK. I'm going to turn my auto back tacking off now, and we'll start stitching there. And you'll see this is a much bigger zigzag. And we'll stop at the end there and trim the thread. So you've got full adjustment on all your stitches, on all your zigzags and straight stitches, and to whatever you may want. Now, a nice little feature, if we go back into that adjustment option, if you've been messing around with the stitch length and width and you're not sure of what to do, there is a reset option here. And that's that button there. By clicking that, it will go back to the factory default. So wherever you see that little icon, touch that, it will go back to factory settings. Let's click out of that now. So lots more stitches in this particular menu. If you wanted an overlocking stitch, for instance, or a blanket stitch, we could just choose that. Now, it also is still telling me what foot to use. It says the J foot, so we'll just run that down for a little bit and you'll see what we're going to get there. It's very, very precise stitching. Very quiet too. You can sew on this at any time of night. If you're a late night sewer, you don't need to be fearful of waking the family up because the machines hardly make any noise at all. So let's just do a trim there. So basic menu, easy to adjust. You've got full control of the width and the length of the stitch, and it's just easy, really, really easy. Let's have a look. Let's go back now. So that's our back button down here. If I wanted to choose one of the decorative stitches in this menu, for instance, I could scroll along, choose whatever one I want. We might want that one there. I can visually see it here. And if we click on this little adjustment option, if it allows me to, it will let me make it wider or narrower, and it will change right here in front of me. So I'm going to leave it at the standard setting, and let's see what that looks like. So again, that's all you've got to do. Just choose the stitch and let it do its thing. And that's the beauty of a computerized machine. A lot of people get scared by the word computerized, but to be quite honest, they're so much more reliable than a mechanical machine. They're easier to use, and that's probably the biggest hang-up most folks have when they do think computerized. They think, oh my goodness, I'll never be able to work it out. It's quite the opposite. You don't need to do anything. It does it for you. You choose the stitch, the machine sets everything. You don't need to worry about it. So let me just do a trim there. Let's have a look at that. So with one click of a button, I was able to choose a really nice little decorative stitch there. And that would, I'm sure, have a use somewhere in a decorative sense if you're a creative person. So that's that menu. You've also got this menu here, gives you French knots and heirloom stitches, and there's 2 pages of those different options there, some entre-deux stitches and all sorts of amazing things. Let's go back and go to another screen here. I'll come to the buttonholes in a minute. So we'll get rid of that pattern. So another 6 pages of amazing decorative stitches here, and we can scroll through there. This is one of my favorites, this one here. Have a look at this guy. Now, interestingly, it tells me to use the N foot, and that means I'm going to grab the little N foot out of my pack of accessories. Now, the reason it's saying that is this particular stitch will work better with the N foot. The N foot actually glides a bit easier than the J foot. So let's have a look at how easy it is to change the presser foot. All we've got to do is lift the presser foot lever, little lever at the back here, drop the foot off, take the N foot, and then I'm just going to slide that in under the shank of the foot and just drop it down and that's it, all set. And now that we've got that, to run this lovely decorative stitch here, all I've got to do is hit the start button. And as I said before, if you're a creative person, there's so many uses for the decorative stitches, and it's sometimes just a little embellishment on a piece of apparel, or you might be making a bag or a table runner or something. These stitches are super easy to use. And you don't have to think about it. You just select the stitch and it will do it. So we'll just stop that there and do a trim. And look at that, we've got a perfect little, like a chain link stitch. Looks great. So easy to use. Now I could take the next 2 hours and show you all the stitches on this machine, but that's not going to be necessary because it's just showing you stitches. And you can see all these stitches on the website. And scrolling back out of there, we've got more decorative stitches, stretch stitches, lettering. So you can actually go in and create your own little sort of letters and monograms. And these are small, so they're ideal for doing names, naming kids' uniforms and things that they might take to school or such. So much better than black pens, which tend to be a bit messy and sometimes wash out. So stitching on a name is very, very simple. You just program that in. It's really simple. One of the things I do like to point out is that you can create your own unlimited number of stitches on this machine, and it's quite extraordinary. Brother have had this around for so long. It's so easy to use. It's called My Custom Stitch. And if I touch this button here and click OK, I now have this fantastic little screen which lets me design any stitch I want. You might have an idea to create a little French knot stitch that's quite unique, or a particular herringbone stitch, or something that is truly going to be unique. And all I've got to do to create my own stitches, we'll just create some random sort of stitch here. Wherever I put this little sort of pen marker and hit set, I've now placed a stitch. So if I now go down and choose my next stitch, might be say 3 millimeters down there, and go set, and then I might come across to the top and back up a little bit and go set, and then I might come back down to the center and go set, and then I'm going to come across to the other side and go set, and then I might come back down. Whoops, I forgot to hit set then. Mustn't have hit it properly. Set, there we go. And now I'm going to come down and one more and go set, and then I'm going to come across here and go set, and then I'm going to come across here and go set again, and one more, set, and then come back, and I've now created my own unique stitch. And if I hit the test button, that's the stitch I've created right there. And if I pop my foot down and hit the go button, this is a brand new stitch that wasn't in the machine. I've just created it, and in fact I could save it into the memory of the machine, or even back to a USB stick, and I could create thousands and thousands of different stitch types that are quite unique. And we can speed that up a little bit more too. And so again, if you're a creative person, this is built for creativity. So let's stop that there and have a look at what we've got. Do a trim. Whoops, this is the trim button, not that one. And there you go. So that's a completely unique stitch that I probably wouldn't use it anywhere because it's not that nice, but if you spend a little bit of time and create your own fun stitches, you will have a blast. So let's just get out of that. Go back to our main menu. Let's have a look at buttonholes and buttons in general, because that's the other one of the most commonly requested features on sewing machines is, does it have an auto buttonhole? This has 10 different styles of auto buttonhole, and it does come with the auto buttonhole foot. So you've got this wonderful foot that measures the button for you, and if we're going to do a button, I happen to have a button right here, and all we've got to do with that button is pop it into the back of the foot, and that is now going to tell the machine how big to make the buttonhole. So let's have a look. It's easy. Just go to the buttonhole menu. And as you can see, we've got a couple of pages of different buttonholes and darning stitches as well. And I think there's also a button sewing stitch. Wait till you see that one in operation. So we're going to go back and choose the standard run-of-the-mill buttonhole. I like that one actually. That's a nice tight buttonhole. Now, all we're going to do is remove the end foot that I've got on there at the moment. So we just drop that off. And the buttonhole foot has got a similar sort of little pin here that goes under the shank of the foot. So lift that up all the way, drop that down. So the buttonhole foot is in play. Now, can you see here, because it has this automatic trimming function, there's no bobbin thread hanging up over the needle plate, so there's no thread to get tangled or get caught. It's just the best thing. Once you've had trimmers on a machine, you won't go back, trust me. So I'm doing a standard buttonhole. I do need to now engage the buttonhole lever, which is this little lever here, and it gets pulled down and goes in behind this little lug right here. So you pull that down, it now knows it's in buttonhole mode. All I've got to do is put my fabric under the foot. I would start at the bottom of the buttonhole, just make sure I line a little, whatever the marker is that you've got, a bit of tailor's chalk, whatever you're using, with the where the needle position is, and you're set to go. And all I've got to do now is hit the go button. And this is actually a reinforced buttonhole. And you can run at full speed here, so easy. Reinforced ends, trims the thread for me. Hit that button and take that out. And there's our buttonhole all done. And if I do, oops, I dropped my button somewhere, there it is. And if I have a look at that button, it's the perfect size for that buttonhole. Really, really simple. Now you can also sew buttons on with this machine, and again, a very simple process. This is the button sewing foot. We'll take off the buttonhole foot. We don't need that anymore. Let's lift that up a little bit, slide that off. There we go. Now the button sewing foot has got this little blue sort of section here, and that's the side that faces you. Now to sew a button on, you do need to drop the feeders. One of the nice features on this machine is there is a feed drop mechanism on the back of the machine. Camera guy will get a shot of that in a moment. And all I've got to do is move that to the right, and that drops the feeders out of place. So that means the feeders are now under the needle plate. So you don't need to sort of put a little cover plate on top of them in order to do monogramming or freehand work or button sewing. It's very, very simple. So now I'm going to pop my button sewing foot on. We'll just do that while I've got this fabric here so you can see it. Oh, and you'll notice here I do need to push my button hole lever back up. Just slide that back up to the top. That releases the button sewing or buttonhole mechanism. And all I've got to do is just drop that down. So my button sewing foot is now in place. Now I'm going to scroll across to get the button sewing option. And that will automatically set the machine to a zigzag of 3.5 millimeters. And because my feeders are down now below the needle plate, it's not going to feed the fabric. But in order to sew the button on, and I'm kind of sitting not in front of it, so I'll have to be a little bit careful here. I just simply need to drop those needle holes. Hopefully camera guy can get a good shot of this. And once we got that position, put my foot down, and all I've got to do now is just turn the wheel a couple of times and make sure that my needles are actually going down into the center of the holes of the button. And I can actually see on this button, the holes are a little bit wider than 3.5 millimeters, so I'm going to make the width 4 millimeters. And that just means, in fact, 4.5 millimeters. And that now means the needle is coming down into the center of the actual hole in the button perfectly. All I've got to do is hit the go button, and it will now sew that on for me. And then does a few lock off stitches, hit the trimming function, trims the thread, and I've now sewn my button on. Nice and easy. Simple as that. Okay, so now I'm going to change back to the regular sewing foot, the J foot, and I'm going to show you another really cool feature on this machine with respect to how it feeds fabric and climbs up over heavy fabrics, and is just such a nice machine to use. So first thing to do, again, I've got the presser foot up, so I'm just going to drop that foot off using the little lever at the back. We'll take that away. My J foot in hand, I've just got to, in fact, before I put that on, I'm going to point this out. If camera guy can see this, the feeders are still down. Remember, I dropped them for doing the button sewing, so I'm just going to slide the little lever at the back across to the left, and now the feeders will engage again, and now the feeders are up above the needle plate. So this is a 7-point feed system, which means it's got the little feed teeth at the front, and it's a good wide pattern, so it feeds really beautifully. But more importantly, it's what we call a block feed system, and that's something that makes machine stitch so much nicer, and particularly over heavy fabrics. And it basically means that the feeders move in a block system, whereas mechanical machines, a lot of older machines, move in a kind of an elliptical fashion, and you don't get the full effect of the feed teeth. So and you can read about that on our website, of course, and on the brochures, but the block feed system is a great feature in a machine of this price point, so you don't often see it. So let's put this foot back on, and again, all it is just a case of holding that, whoops, I'll just get that positioned where I want it, and lowering the presser foot until it clicks into place. Now I'm just going to take that bit of fabric that I've got here and quickly show you something. Now, often stitching up over heavy seams can be quite complicated, and again, the feeding is very important. So we've got, oh gosh, about 8 layers, I know 6 layers of a reasonably heavy polyester twill fabric here, and I'm just going to stitch that down there for a moment. It's quite thick, and I've got a standard needle in there, so we haven't changed any needles at all. But we'll go out of that and we'll go back into our standard sewing menu, and I'll go to a center stitch there and slow it down a bit. I don't want it to go too fast. My bobbin is still threaded, I'm good to go. So I'm just going to stitch that down here, and you'll see my logic for this in a minute. We're just going to climb up over this. You might sew straighter than me because I'm not sitting in front of the machine, so I'm at a disadvantage. Let's just do a trim there. But one of the things people often find difficult is sewing up over, you know, when you've got like a heavy kind of seam or something, around the bottom of a pair of jeans or legs of pants or something like that, where you've got those side seams. So we'll just slow down here and just watch how easily this climbs up, even regardless of what speed we're going at. As long as you get that under the foot, it just climbs up beautifully, and the foot just pivots over there. So stop that there, do a trim, and hopefully camera guy got that, but we'll do it one more time just to be sure. Again, really slowly, so no matter how fast you go, and that's the benefit on an electronic machine, whether you're going fast or slow, you get full needle penetration power, because it is the power in the motor and the electronics actually makes this happen. So even at that very slow speed. Now remember, I'm just using the start-stop button, but absolutely has no issues climbing up over that thickness. And I can, in fact, probably double that and it would still work. So we'll just stop there, do a trim. So you've got the finesse of sewing on whatever lightweight fabrics, chiffons and voiles and knit fabrics, but you've got the speed and the power and the feeding mechanism to actually sew over heavy fabric. So it's a really good all-round sewing machine, and even if it didn't have an embroidery unit, which it does, it would be great value as a sewing machine with all those amazing features we've mentioned here. So so that's a rundown on the sewing functionality. Now it's time to have a look at embroidery, and we'll change over the machine. So changing to embroidery, couple of things we have to do. The first thing we have to do is change the presser foot, because we have a standard sewing foot on here at the moment. And to do that, we do need to take the whole shank of the foot off. Sometimes it's easier just to let the current presser foot go. And you'll see right here there's a screw, and you do get this fantastic screwdriver to do this with. So we just need to undo that screw there. And again, I'm on the wrong side here, but that's all right. We've undone that screw, and the shank will now fall off. So that's the presser foot shank, and we don't need that. We do need to now get the, what's this one called? This is the Q foot. So that's your embroidery foot, and this is the part that screws to where the shank was. And this little part here goes directly over the top of the needle bar, or where the screw for the needle set screw is. So it's pretty simple. So take the foot around there like that. We've undone this screw a little bit more. Now it's a good idea at this point to just lower the needle just a little bit. Put the presser foot down, and you can now just simply slide this around and start doing that screw up. And that's the only mechanical change you have to make, is just put the appropriate foot on. Once you've got that screw done up, use the screwdriver and just nip that screw up. Now you do want to do it reasonably tight, because you don't want the foot to come off while you're embroidering. And once that's on, you'll see we can raise that foot nice and easily at that point there. We do need to now put the embroidery unit on, and this is a very important part, and at this stage we switch the machine off. You must switch the machine off when you change the embroidery unit, because we are going to be plugging that into the machine. I'm just going to make some room just there. I'm going to take the little, I'll get rid of that bit of fabric, we don't need that. Take that little free arm cover off there. Grab our embroidery unit. Machine is switched off. And we just simply need to slide this back into place and it will click into place. So you'll feel it click, and when it clicks into place, it actually drops the feeders automatically out of position so they're not going to be above the plate, which of course is what you want for embroidery. Once we have the embroidery unit on, we're good to turn the machine back on. We put our presser foot on. The machine will now automatically detect that it's in embroidery mode and you'll get a different screen come up. So once the screensaver starts, just touch that button. It says remove the embroidery frame. There is no frame on there, of course. The carriage will move. Keep your hands out of the way. So whenever you see error messages on a Brother machine, they're there for a reason or a warning. So please read them because if you do, you're less likely to make any mistakes. And we just click OK to that. And the machine is now in embroidery mode. So let's have a look at what it holds. Okay, so we're in embroidery mode and let's have a look at what's on screen because it's a different screen to sewing mode, of course. And the first thing you're going to notice is we've got some menus and this is where your designs are found. So these are the built-in designs on the machine. Now, it has 135 built-in designs, which is great. The Disney model, the M380D has the same designs, plus it has 65 Disney designs. So that's the only difference. Really, this just doesn't have the Disney designs. But of course, with designs, the thing to remember is there are hundreds of thousands, maybe millions of designs available to be purchased online. Get free designs online. They're everywhere. And in fact, because this machine links up to the new Artspira system with Brother, you get free designs from Brother. Virtually every month there's something new coming out. We'll touch on that in a moment. But right now I'm looking at the first two menus here, and if I click on one menu, you'll see that then opens up another subset of menus and or a subset of designs. In this case, we've got 9 pages of designs, and I can scroll through those designs. If I want a design, I just select it, and then I can just hit set. And that will go into embroidery mode. I can move the design around, I can size it, I can rotate, I can do all sorts of things. Now, I'm talking to you about as if you might know something about embroidery. If you're totally new to embroidery, hang in there because we've got lots of videos on our website covering all sorts of aspects of embroidery and a lot more in depth on how to use these machines. But machine embroidery is easy, and it just opens up a whole new world for you. So selecting a design is really easy on these machines, and particularly using the built-in designs. Let me go back there though and just quickly scroll through and the other options. So there's, as I said, 135 built-in designs across a few menus, and the book that comes with the machine, the design book, actually has all those designs in color, and you can see what they look like, how many stitches they have, all the data that you need to know, and the color sequencing, etc., etc. So it's nice and easy. Let's just go back there. You'll also see that we've got some large monogram fonts. So these are fonts that, that's a bit easier to see, that do give you a really large monogram, and ideal for personalizing towels or robes or anything where you want to really have a nice professional look as far as a monogram goes. So they're built in as well. Scroll back there. You've also got basic lettering. So like, you know, if you're doing you want a logo on a shirt and you want to put a name or a sports team or something, you've got not 6, there's more than that. There's quite a few different fonts, including some other foreign characters, which I'm not too familiar with. So I'll go back to our standard screen there, but they're built into the machine. And over here we have a whole series of shapes. Now when you choose a shape or a border or something like that, you can then choose different elements to put around that border. So there's special decorative stitches around those borders, and in fact there's quite a few. Some are multicolored, and you can size them and do whatever you like to them, so you can create really nice badges and special emblems and all sorts of things using these features. Too much to sit here and go through in one video because there's just so much built into this machine. I mentioned before it takes USBs, so you can go to any number of websites and download your own embroidery designs, load them to a USB stick, plug them in the machine, and it loads just the same way as if I was loading off the menu on the machine. The machine does need to have a specific file format, and the Brother format is PES. Again, if you're new to embroidery, don't worry about it. We teach you all this anyway, and it's very easy to follow. But that's the file format that this uses. You can't just take a JPEG image or a graphic file and stitch it. It has to be an embroidery design. But again, millions available. So what we're going to do right now is I'm going to load a design and a bit of text, and we're going to stitch it out. I'm going to show you how that actually works, how easy it is to do. And the design I'm going to use, I think, is in this menu here, and it's a really cool little design. So I'm just going to scroll through till I find him. There he is. He's as cute as a button little dog here. So I'm just going to hit set. And at this point, I can move the design around on screen with my stylus, or I can hit the move button. I can recenter it, I can move it this way. I want it sitting right down at the bottom of the embroidery area. And this area here that we're working in is in fact 100 by 100 millimeters. So that's the embroidery area on this machine. And I'm happy with that design there. I can resize designs, but it's kind of a little bit limited. You can only resize them to about 5 or 10% before you can't go any further, because it would just open or close the stitches up and it wouldn't look great on this machine. I can rotate the design, and I can also check the colors. And if I wanted to see, this design with using different colors, I could just, say I want a red bandana there, or a red scarf. Doesn't matter what I use, but I'm going to reset it because I want to use blue. So I've just reset that back to blue. I'm going to click OK. Now I want to add some text, and it's really, really easy. We just hit the add button, go to my font menu, and I'm going to use this font here, and I'm going to type in, let's go and catch a T. So I'm going to use the letter T, and I'm going to make it a small font. And now I'm going to get the letter O, so 2. And now I want to put a space in between 2, because you may have guessed already, I am going to type in too cool, because this guy is really cool. So he's too cool. Let's go set. And now I want to move that text up. So I can either click on the design and move it. It's a little bit hard because it's sitting on top of the other design. So I'm going to use the move key, and I'm just going to take the word too cool up to the top. But I've also got other options. So if I go into my font edit menu, I can now array the font. So I'm going to put him on a bit of an arc up the top. In fact, that's exactly what I wanted to do. So we've got the word too cool. And if I wanted to make that text a little bit bigger, I could hit the size button and I could resize it up a little bit. That's about as far as I can go, or I could take it back a wee bit. If I'm resizing the built-in text on the machine, the text will recalculate all the stitches. So you can really scale that up and down and get a great result. So I'm going to leave that exactly as I see it right there. Click OK. So now I'm going to go to Edit End, and I do want to move this to the center. So now that I've finished editing an individual element, it's all combined, and if I hit the center button here, it now puts it right in the center of the hoop. And that's kind of a good thing to do, because that makes it easier to set up the embroidery. At this point, we're going to now get our hoop, put a bit of fabric in, and go from there. So let's grab our standard hoop. Now this is the hoop that comes with the machine. It's got a couple of little mounting pins here, and it does mount onto the bracket there. And we're just going to loosen that hoop off a little bit. And again, if you're new to embroidery, don't panic. We've got lots of education on how to do all these things. And it really is the same regardless of what machine that you have. So I've just got a standard piece of white fabric here, and I'm using what's called a backing. I'm not going to get into this right now. We've got videos show you all this, but this is what we call a cutaway backing. And I'm just going to pop that down and position my hoop into position and just push that ring into place. Now it should go in nice and firmly, not too tight to put in. And there we go. I had a little bit of fullness there, and I don't recommend pulling too much fabric out. That was just a little tiny bit, but that's pretty cool. You make sure you push the hoop in all the way, and that's what it looks like on the back. My fabric is now mounted, so all that's left is to first change my bobbin thread over, get the right threads, and we'll put the hoop on. Now, with embroidery, you generally use a standard, a white or sometimes a black thread underneath on the bobbin. You don't need to change the thread on the bobbin every time you change the thread on the needle. It's not necessary. I have a white pre-wound bobbin here, so I'm going to take the blue bobbin out that we were using during our sewing demonstration. And I'm going to put this white one in, and again, very simple. Just drop the bobbin in, pull the thread around, cut it off. That's now threaded, ready to go. And we need to put some embroidery thread. I could embroider with the Razan thread, but it's a sewing thread. It doesn't have that lovely luster that an embroidery thread has, and it really wouldn't look that nice. So I'm going to take that spool of thread off. A little tip, folks, whenever you're taking thread out, never pull thread backwards through the machine. Always pull thread forward through the machine. That's will avoid getting any damage or things caught in your tension assembly. I'm using the brand Hemingworth embroidery thread. This is the one that comes with the little cap system, so the little clear plastic cap stays on the spool while I'm using the thread. And what that means is it's less likely to tangle and get caught. I put the thread up there, and because I'm using the Hemingworth spool, I don't need to use the little thread cap. It's not necessary when using the Hemingworth spool. We just thread the machine as normal. And of course, what I haven't done is check what my first color would be. So we should do that. Now, if I go to the embroidery tab just here, the first color is in fact that electric blue, and it's going to take 2 minutes to do. So I did choose the right color to start with. And all we got to do is follow the threading path the same way we did before. Back into the take-up lever, make sure it gives a good little pull into the tension there, and then we just cut off the thread at number 8. Lower the presser foot, push the needle threader down, and the needle is threaded. So that's all there is to it. Now I'm going to raise that presser foot again. We're going to take our hoop and position it. We just need to get the fabric under the foot and clip these little clips into the corresponding sockets there. And that's clipped in. Our first color is blue. I don't need to move the design, but if I was positioning the design somewhere on the fabric, I can go back a step and move it around. We've got videos that show you how to do that. It's really simple. All I need to do now is, I've got everything done, ready to go, put the presser foot down and start embroidering. Actually, I'll just stop this for 1 minute. There's one thing I forgot to do. It's very important on this machine. So before you start embroidering, the thread tension, which is normally on 4 for sewing, just needs to be taken back to 2 for embroidery. That's in the book and it's explained in our videos, but that's all you need to do. And then we're ready to hit the go button. So let's get going. Okay, so that has finished stitching. Obviously I did a few color changes in there, but really simple. Just put the new thread on, use the needle threader, does it nice and easily. But once we're finished, just lift the presser foot, and it's just a matter of releasing that little lever there. I'll try and keep my hands out the way, and that just comes off. And you'll notice there's a couple of little jump stitches we need to trim off there. That's just a case of doing this. There we are, we've trimmed off a few of those jump stitches, and now it's just a case of popping the hoop out. There we go. There's our cool little design, all done. It's really simple. So imagine having access to thousands of designs and doing this on shirts and towels and robes and hats and all sorts of things. Around the home, you will have a ball. Embroidery is so much fun. Now, I did mention earlier, if I find my stylus, there is also let's get out of that now, and we can escape out of that. We'll just get right back to our home screen. Oops, okay, there we go. So we're back to home. Brother have got an app that works with this machine, because this machine is a Wi-Fi machine. That's one of the key factors over the previous model, is it has Wi-Fi, and the new Artspira app will allow you to download designs from the Brother app itself. There's loads of free designs in there. There's free designs going up all the time. You can even create your own design. So let me show you how easy that app is to use. And I'm just using my iPhone, but you can do this on Android or any smartphone with Android or the Apple iOS system. And I've currently got the Artspira app open, and you can see it works with both embroidery designs and cutting designs. So that's to work with the scan and cut product as well. I've already set my Wi-Fi up on this. It's a really simple process, but you'll see here that if I go to my embroidery designs options, I've got all these built-in designs that are already embroidery files ready to stitch. So if I wanted that teddy bear to send it to the machine, I would just click create and transfer, and I don't need to see that again. And now it's transferring that design, successfully sent it to my machine. And if I go into my machine, into my machine's memory and my Wi-Fi, you'll see that design will now be available for me on the machine. It just takes a couple of moments to process, and there it is. So I would just select that design, hit set, and now I'm ready to stitch it. So with all those free designs and continuing to come every month, free designs, you've got a great resource. But it gets better. So if I just click cancel to that and go back and back, I can actually create my own design. So if I click on new, I can go to drawing tools. This is the 100 by 100 hoop, and I can draw. So if I wanted to draw a really bad heart, that's terrible. I'm not an artist, don't possess to be, but or if I wanted to write my name, I could do this. And whatever I write on screen, that's what's going to stitch out. So with a little bit of practice, you can create some really cool things on this system here. And if I wanted to save that, go save, I'll give it a name. I'll just call that Gary. Okay. It's storing that now on the server, and then I can send that to my machine. So, and go next, and I want to go done and transfer. Okay, I've now sent that little bit of text that I created. It's my own freehand writing. It's done, it's finished. That will now come up on the machine. So if I go back to my menu here, my memory, and go into there. Whoops, sorry, get out of there, I did the wrong thing. Even I make mistakes sometimes. So just go to the pocket, go to the cloud, and that design will now be on there, ready to go. As I said, it takes a moment. There it is, set. And that is exactly what's going to stitch out when you put your fabric in the hoop, and away you go. So the Artspira app is free, and it links up directly to your Wi-Fi models, and this is a Wi-Fi model, as is the Disney version as well. And you can have a lot of fun with that. There are also loads of other aspects on here. So you've got design recommendations. I think there's also projects and all sorts of things you can gain from this app. And it's great because it's just there, it's free, and that will continue to grow over time. You'll have so many features that you can work with using the Artspira app, and that's an exclusive Brother feature. So that's fantastic. Embroidery is not a complicated process. We've got loads and loads and loads of education showing you how to actually do this. So if you are thinking of your next machine and you haven't thought about embroidery as being something you can add, this is a great option because it gives you a great sewing machine in its own right, plus the advantage of coming with an embroidery unit, so you can at least try it. I have to say that a lot of people, hundreds, maybe thousands of people in Australia have started their embroidery journey using one of these machines or the predecessor to this machine as that sort of starting point to see if it's something for you, because it does offer so much flexibility. There's not much more I'm going to dig into at the moment because the video is already a lot longer than I expected it to be. But I do hope that you've found that helpful. Please use all the resources on our website, look at the brochures, watch the other videos. We've got a lot of smaller videos showing you the different aspects, or the different very pointed videos showing the different things on this machine on this page, and I'd encourage you to have a look at that. And if you're not sure about anything, you have loads of questions to ask, please get in contact with us, be that by phone, by email, by messenger, whatever it is you want to contact us, how you want to contact us, and we will answer any questions for you. As always, you know, I say with Brother machines, they're beautiful and reliable. They've got a great warranty, great backup, and in fact this one, there is also a QR code on the top. You can scan that, and that will actually take you to the Brother resources as well. So there's lots of videos on the Brother pages to show you how to get the most out of all this new fantastic technology. So that's the M370 and by default the M380D, and I hope you found this informative and until next time, happy sewing and embroidering. Cheers.